Ever wish you could have been in that crowd for Queen at Live Aid?
Or like, picture yourself front row at, I don't know, your favorite band's show next week, even if the tour's totally sold out. Right. Well, what if I said we're getting close, like really close, to experiencing concerts, I mean any concert, in this crazy immersive way right on our phones? Yeah, that's the future volumetric video's painting for us. And it's about to get very real.
Think of it this way. Imagine a digital twin of a performance, so real that you could practically feel the energy of the crowd. And it's not just watching a screen, you'd be moving through the performance, seeing every angle, like every note, every beat of sweat.
Okay, I know what you're thinking. We've heard all this before, right? 3D this, VR that. But trust me, this is different. We're diving into a new research paper that's all about bringing this tech, this mind-blowing tech, to the devices we use every day. They call what they're doing dual GS.
And it's all about creating crazy, realistic, virtual experiences from, well, massive amounts of data. We're talking about capturing everything, every single nuance of a live performance, the way an artist moves, how their instrument vibrates.
Even their facial expressions. And it's all in such detail, it's basically like you're actually there.
It's really amazing what they've done in this research. They've basically bottled up the soul of a live performance and put it into a digital format. And the key is this whole thing they call dual Gaussian splatting. Or, as they say in the paper, dual GS.
Okay, so dual GS, it's like digital soul capturing, right? But, like, break it down for me. How does this even work? I mean, I can barely keep track of my keys, let alone the millions of data points it must take to rebuild a whole concert in 3D.
Imagine like a digital puppet, a perfect copy of a musician, able to move and groove just like a real person. And Dual GS makes this puppet using these two sets of points.
So think of one set as the digital skeleton, capturing all the big moves, like a drummer's arm swinging, the guitarist rocking out. Then you've got the second set, the visual details, and those add all the nuance.
Like how their fingers move on the strings or even the expression on their face when they hit that high note.
So it's like one set nails the moves and the other one makes sure they look like a real person, not some, janky robot from a bad music video.
Exactly. And the really cool part is this separation. It makes things super detailed, but also efficient. It's actually based on how they do CGI in animation, like those digital skeletons you see in video games and movies. But this research takes it way further. They're capturing the tiniest details.
Like even how a violin bow vibrates, or the way, like, sweat might glisten on a performer's face.
Okay, that's pretty wild. But I've got to ask, most 3D stuff I've seen needs those motion capture suits. Those are kind of clunky.
Did these musicians have to get all dressed up in those, like they were filming Avatar 2 or something?
That's one of the coolest things about Dual GS. It doesn't need those suits or even pre-existing models or anything. You point the cameras at the performance, and the system it learns and adapts to each musician, each instrument, all in real time.
Hold on, did you say cameras, as in multiple?
How many are we talking here?
Get this. They used 81 cameras. 81. To capture every single angle.
It's like giving the system 81 pairs of eyes so it understands how the musician moves in 3D. Like, ridiculous accuracy.
81 cameras. I can barely wrangle my cat for a Zoom call. Are you kidding me? Okay, so they've got all these cameras. They've got their digital puppet. How do they get from 81 separate videos to one seamless 3D performance?
So it's a two-step process. They call it coarse alignment and fine-grained optimization. Picture it like a dance.
A dance. Okay, you've definitely got my attention. Tell me more about this, like digital dance floor.
Imagine like a waltz, right? The coarse alignment is like nailing the basic steps. Where are the musician's feet? How are their arms moving? All that. It's really about the broad strokes of the performance. Then comes the fine-grained optimization. And that's where things get good. It adds in those details.
The flourishes, the spins, the dips, all the things that make a dance really captivating.
So coarse alignment gets the steps down, and fine-grained optimization adds the flair, makes sure our digital puppet doesn't trip up.
But with detail like that, these files got to be huge, right? Are we talking needing a supercomputer just to watch a 3-minute song?
You're right to think about the file sizes. They're massive. But that's what makes this so cool. Remember those old stop-motion films?
Where if the movements weren't smooth, it ended up all jerky and weird.
Yeah, like certain claymation holiday specials I won't name.
Exactly. So this research, it tackles that problem. They really focused on something called temporal coherence.
Basically, making sure the transitions between frames are super smooth, and one of their secret weapons, motion prediction.
Hold on, is this like Minority Report now? The system's predicting the musician's moves before they happen?
Kinda, yeah.
Huh.
It checks out how the musician's been moving and uses that to guess where they'll go next. Super helpful for those fast, complex actions, like imagine a drummer going wild or a guitarist shredding a solo.
Makes sense. If you can anticipate the move, you make those transitions even smoother. No more like that dog meme with all the heads, haha. But we got to talk about the elephant in the room, right? The sheer amount of data these digital concerts make. How do you even start to shrink something that detailed down to a size our phones can handle?
$1 million question, right? But these researchers, they had a really smart solution. They used 3 different ways to compress everything. Each one's kind of fascinating on its own. Imagine you have this crazy detailed painting, right? But you can only use like 1% of the original brushstrokes to recreate it.
That was the challenge, and spoiler alert, they nailed it.
All right, you've got me hooked. Lay it on me. What are these 3 magic compression tricks?
So the first one, they call it residual compression. And it's all about working smarter, not harder, you know.
Imagine you're watching a movie, but they only save the changes between frames, not the whole frame every time. So like if a guitarist strums a chord, you just save the hand moving, the strings, not the whole stage.
That's clever. Instead of the whole picture every time, you're saving like little updates.
Exactly. And because it's so smooth, remember that temporal coherence we were talking about?
There aren't actually that many changes between frames. The second trick is codec compression. That one's about grouping similar stuff together.
No.
Think of a digital photo, right? JPEGs, they don't store the color of every single pixel separately. They group similar colors together to save space.
So like if the musician's outfit is all one color, you don't have to keep saying blue shirt, it's just blue shirt once for a bunch of points.
Exactly. And smoother transitions mean this works even better. It's about finding patterns and using them to make the file smaller.
This is like digital origami or something. You're folding these huge files into these tiny packets of info.
I like that, digital origami. And wait, there's one more. The third one is called Persistent Code Book. And yeah, it sounds kind of like a spy movie.
But it's seriously smart. They made like a dictionary of all these common visual things you see throughout the performance.
Wait, so like if you see the same guitar chord shape a bunch, you don't got to save the whole thing each time. It's more like, hey, computer, remember that chord shape from before? Use that one.
You got it. It's shorthand, but for visual stuff, instead of spelling everything out every single time, you've got these shortcuts, and that saves a ton of space.
Okay, so they got the moves, they smoothed out the transitions, and then crammed these massive files down to size. But did it actually work? Can we watch these concerts on something that's not like a NASA supercomputer?
That's the best part. They got a 120x compression ratio. Can you believe that?
Shrunk the data down to less than 1% of its original size.
Wait, 120x? And it still looks good. They didn't turn the concert into a blurry mess.
Nope. They were really careful about keeping all the important details, especially the little things that make a performance come alive, you know? It's like they found that perfect balance between shrinking the file size and making sure it still looks amazing.
That's seriously impressive. And it's not just about smaller files, right? This is about making this tech something everyone can use. This wasn't just a theory, though, right? They actually built something with this.
Oh yeah, they made a whole VR concert demo, used their dual GS system, and even those new PICO4 headsets. Imagine putting those on, and boom, you're standing in the middle of a concert. The band's all around you. You feel the energy of the crowd.
Wow, okay, now I'm really trying to picture this. Did they say what it was like? Like, what kind of concert was it?
They didn't go into too much detail about the actual performance, but they did talk about moving around in the virtual space. You could get up close and personal with the musicians, even see them from angles you never could at a real concert. Imagine you could be right next to the drummer during a crazy solo.
Or like floating above the pianist, watching their fingers fly across the keys.
Okay, that's it. My mind is officially blown. And this isn't just concerts either, right? Think about seeing a Broadway show, but like from the wings. Or a ballet, but you're right there on stage.
Exactly. And the learning possibilities. Like learning guitar, but you're virtually right next to Jimi Hendrix or someone. Seeing how they hold their fingers, their technique, everything right up close.
Or for dancers, imagine being able to analyze every move they make from every angle.
This tech could completely change how we experience and learn about art.
It's like a whole new world of creativity.
Hmm.
But there's got to be some downsides, right? It can't be all perfect.
Well, it's still early days, you know. Capturing really thin things is tough, like the strings on a violin, and getting the background right is super important. Nobody wants to see some random crew member wander into the shot during the concert, right?
Oh, man, can you imagine? It's like suddenly there's a guy in a Hawaiian shirt rocking out behind the band.
Exactly. But they're figuring those things out, even with those little hiccups. This research is huge for making volumetric video accessible.
We're talking about experiencing things that used to be limited by, well, everything. Time, money, those crazy concert ticket prices.
No argument there. And honestly, this could make those incredible experiences available to everyone. So tell me, if you could experience any concert, past or present, recreated with this tech, what would it be? Let us know in the comments, and until next time, we'll catch you later. Ever get this weird feeling like AI is stuck in the Stone Age?
Interesting analogy.
Like we've got self-driving cars, right? But imagine one that slams on the brakes for, like, a pigeon,
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
but doesn't even register a tumbleweed blowing across the road.
Right.
It's because traditional object detection, the tech that lets AI see,
Right.
it's kind of dumb.
Yeah, in a way, it is. It's only as good as the data it's been trained on.
It only knows what it's been explicitly told to look for.
It's true. These models are usually trained on these massive, and I mean massive, data sets of images. And each one has to be painstakingly labeled. Car, pedestrian, stop sign. Anything outside that predefined vocabulary, the AI is clueless.
Okay, so enter this research paper that landed on my digital doorstep. Mamba YOLO World. Marrying YOLO World with Mamba for open vocabulary detection.
Catchy title.
Right. But more importantly, it promises to blow up this whole only knows what it's been told limitation. You up for a deep dive?
Absolutely. Let's unpack it.
Okay.
The paper's core idea is to fuse two powerful techniques. YOLO, which is known for its speed,
Okay.
and Mamba, which is a really cutting-edge approach to sequence modeling.
Hold up, sequence modeling. That sounds more like a genetics lab than computer vision.
It is about recognizing patterns. But instead of DNA, Mamba helps the AI find patterns in visual data, even when those patterns haven't been, explicitly pointed out before.
Okay, so instead of recognizing, say, a cat because we showed 1,000 pictures of cats labeled cat, this model could, infer catness from the way it moves, the shape of its ears, all that.
Precisely. The open vocabulary part is key. It means this model isn't limited by predefined categories. It can actually detect objects it's never specifically seen before.
Okay, now that's a game changer. But hold on, the paper also keeps throwing around terms like efficiency and real-time applications. This isn't just some, theoretical AI daydream, is it?
No, not at all. One of the biggest criticisms of these advanced models is that they're resource-intensive, slow, computationally expensive, not ready for prime time. But the creators of Mamba YOLO World designed it specifically with practicality in mind.
How'd they pull that off? Did they just, give the AI a double shot of espresso?
In a way, yes. They introduced these, it's called selective scan algorithms. There's two main flavors, parallel guided and serial guided, and they essentially act like tunnel vision for the AI. They help it focus on the most relevant information and ignore the rest.
So instead of, meticulously analyzing every pixel in an image, it's like, nope, that's just a cloud, moving on.
Exactly. And this selective attention is what makes Mamba YOLO World so efficient. It doesn't waste time on irrelevant details. It gets straight to the point, which is crucial for real-time applications.
This is where those visuals in the paper come in handy, right? Specifically Figure 2, which, for those following along at home, shows how all this fits together.
Figure 2 is our map for this part of the deep dive. It illustrates how the core of Mamba YOLO World, the Mamba Fusion Pan, uses these selective scans to process visual and textual information. But here's the key takeaway. It doesn't wait for one process to finish before starting another. It's constantly analyzing, integrating information, which is what makes it so blazing fast.
Okay, so it's not just smarter, it's faster too. But how much faster? And how do we even measure that? Because I have a feeling feel snappier isn't going to cut it in the world of AI research.
You're absolutely right, and that's where the performance benchmarks come in, which we'll delve into right after a quick break.
We're back and ready to crunch some numbers. Because in the world of AI, the proof is in the, performance benchmarks.
Exactly, and this is where Mamba YOLO World really shines. The researchers put it through its paces on, standard benchmarks like LVIS and COCO, which are basically like obstacle courses for these object detection models.
Okay, and how'd it do? Did it trip over any hurdles?
Not only did it clear every hurdle, it practically set new course records, significantly outperforming existing models, often with, get this, fewer resources.
Wow.
The paper has a series of tables the highest 2 and 3. They lay out the results in detail, but the headline is, Mombiyola World isn't just a good idea, it's demonstrably better.
Okay, but better how? Give me some specifics. Like, what does this actually look like in practice?
Well, for starters, it's faster, as we discussed, but it's also more accurate, particularly in those zero-shot scenarios where it encounters objects it's never been explicitly trained on.
Right, the whole pink elephant on roller skates situation. But we've tossed that phrase around a lot. Can you give me like a real-world example of what this kind of like zero-shot detection could mean?
Sure. Imagine a robotic arm on a manufacturing line, right?
Okay, yeah.
With traditional object detection, it might be thrown off by a new component it's never encountered before.
Okay.
Mombiyola World, on the other hand, could potentially analyze the shape, the size, even the way light reflects off this new object,
Yeah.
and infer enough about it to keep working without, missing a beat.
So it's not just about recognizing like predefined objects, it's about understanding like the fundamental properties of those objects.
Yes.
And like extrapolating from there.
Exactly.
Kind of like how we as humans learn.
Exactly. We learn by observing, by making connections, by drawing inferences based on, limited information. And that's what makes this research so fascinating. It suggests that we're moving towards AI that can learn and adapt in a much more nuanced and sophisticated way.
But it's still just recognizing objects, right? I mean, that's impressive.
Yeah.
But it's not like it's like thinking, is it?
Well, that depends on how you define thinking. But what's exciting is that this kind of open vocabulary detection could be a stepping stone to even more advanced forms of AI cognition. Imagine a self-driving car that not only recognizes a ball rolling into the street, but also anticipates that a child might be running after it.
Okay, now that is starting to sound like thinking. So we've gone from AI that can barely recognize a stop sign unless it's like perfectly centered in the frame,
Right.
to AI that might be able to predict a child chasing a ball.
Right.
That's a pretty wild leap.
It is, and it makes you wonder, what the next leap might be.
Right.
The researchers behind Mombiyola World, they raise a really interesting question. What if we could apply this open vocabulary approach to other senses, not just vision?
Because AI isn't just about seeing, is it?
Right.
We've got sound, touch, heck, even smell is becoming digital these days.
Precisely. Imagine an AI model that could analyze sound waves.
Okay.
With the same nuance and flexibility that Mombiyola World applies to visual data, it could learn to identify not just specific sounds, but unusual patterns, anomalies, things that don't fit the expected acoustic mold.
So instead of just like identifying a gunshot, it could analyze the subtle echoes and distortions in the sound and tell you what kind of gun it was,
Right.
where it was fired from, maybe even who pulled the trigger.
It's possible. Or think about medical applications.
So,
An AI that could analyze heartbeats or lung sounds and detect subtle variations that might indicate a problem, even before any physical symptoms appear.
okay, now that's the kind of future I can get behind.
Right.
AI that helps us prevent problems, not just react to them.
Exactly. And it's not just about individual senses either.
Okay.
What if we could combine these open vocabulary models? Imagine an AI that could, simultaneously analyze visual, auditory, even tactile data, all with the same ability to learn and adapt to new information.
So we're talking about AI that could potentially experience the world in a way that's closer to how we experience it.
In a sense, yes. And with that comes a whole new level of understanding, of context, of the ability to make connections and draw inferences that go far beyond what we can currently achieve with AI.
So what started as a deep dive into one research paper has turned into like a glimpse into the future of AI.
It has.
And you know what? For once, I'm not terrified. This is actually pretty exciting to think about the possibilities.
It is exciting. And I think that's the most important takeaway from all of this. As AI continues to evolve, it's not just about making it smarter or faster.
Yeah.
It's about making it more adaptable, more versatile, more capable of learning and growing alongside us.
And maybe, just maybe, along the way, it'll teach us a thing or two about how our own minds work. This has been a great deep dive and a great reminder that sometimes the most mind-blowing discoveries start with a single question, a spark of curiosity, and a willingness to, follow that spark wherever it leads. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and as always, thanks for taking the deep dive with us. Ever imagine editing a photo, as easily as you rearrange furniture in one of those home design apps.
Mm-hmm.
You just like grab a mountain peak, make it a little taller, maybe shift a tree over, just like that. That's the kind of cool stuff we're diving into today.
Yeah, it's really blurring the lines between, messing around in the real world and in the digital world. It's exciting.
Totally. And this new research paper, Instant Drag, Improving Interactivity in Drag-Based Image Editing. This could be the thing that makes it happen for real.
I think so.
No more messing with layers and selections and all that, just pure drag and drop fun. So what's got you so hyped about this one?
What's really wild is they're making this super fast and easy to use.
Okay.
And it sounds simple, right? Like, oh, drag to edit.
Sure, yeah.
But for a computer, it's
Yeah.
actually incredibly complicated.
Really? Why is that? Because we drag and drop files on our computer all the time.
Right, but images are different. When you drag part of a picture, you're not just like sliding pixels around.
Right.
You're kind of asking the computer to figure out how that thing exists in 3D. Even though it's a flat image, right? So, like, imagine stretching the corner of someone's smile. You want the whole cheek to move naturally, right?
Yeah.
Not just get all warped out of shape.
Right, yeah.
It's tricky.
So it's like teaching a computer to see a flat picture as a 3D scene that it can move around.
Yeah, exactly. Like giving it that depth perception it doesn't naturally have.
No small feat. Right.
Definitely not. And like the ways they've been trying to do this before, either slow or they take a ton of computing power or you need to like tell the AI exactly which pixels to move. It's a whole thing.
Okay, so not exactly the instant results we were hoping for with a name like Instant Drag, maybe.
Well, yeah.
So how are they changing the game with this?
Okay, so think of it this way. They've broken this whole problem down, right, into a two-part kind of process. The first part is called flow gen.
Okay.
And it's basically like the choreographer of the operation.
All right.
So you say, you want to move that mountain we were talking about.
Yeah.
FlowGen takes that and creates a plan for how the entire image should change.
So it predicts, like, the ripple effect of my drag to make sure everything moves how it should.
Exactly.
But how does it even learn that? Does it, like, study a database of every possible image edit ever?
That'd be wild.
Right.
No, it's way more clever than that. Instead of edited images, it learns from video. So imagine like feeding it hours of video clips, people walking, trees blowing in the wind, anything.
So it's like you're giving this AI a crash course in physics and animation.
It's learning how stuff moves in the real world.
Right.
And then it takes that knowledge and applies it to photos.
Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah, so it analyzes all those video frames, right?
Yeah.
And develops this deep understanding of motion.
Yeah.
So when you drag that mountain peak, it knows how the rest of the landscape should warp and stretch.
That's really cool. I'm starting to see how that would create a much more natural result.
Exactly.
So we've got FlowGen, our choreographer, setting the stage. What about the second part of the instant drag power couple?
Ah, yes. That would be flow diffusion. And if FlowGen's the choreographer, you can think of this as the artist. Taking those dance moves, the choreography, and actually painting those changes onto your image.
Gotcha. So FlowGen plans the dance. Flow diffusion makes sure the dancers all hit their marks perfectly.
Yep.
Making those edits look real and believable.
Exactly. And what's really cool is, unlike some other methods, it doesn't have to like analyze and redraw the entire image every single time you make a tiny change.
Oh, okay.
It's built to handle these motion-based edits super quick.
Okay, so it's like the difference between rearranging a real room versus having to like rebuild the entire room from scratch every time you move a chair.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, much faster, more efficient. But to train an AI to do all that, understand movement, predict it, that can't be easy. What kind of challenges did they run into with that?
It's tricky, really tricky. But like the results from this paper, they make it seem like it actually works.
Okay.
There's always a few hitches with any new tech, but it's looking pretty good.
All right, before we get to those hitches, give me the good stuff. Like, what can this thing do that's got people freaking out?
Okay, so one of the coolest things is how well it works on like all kinds of images, right? So they trained it mostly on pictures of faces.
Okay.
Think about it. Faces are super complex.
Yeah.
All those micro expressions, the way different parts move together.
Right, so it learns how to move smiles and eyebrows and all that realistically.
Exactly.
But what happens when you show it something totally different? Like not a face.
That is the million-dollar question. And this is the amazing part. They tried it on all sorts of stuff. Drawings, cartoons, and the edits still look awesome.
Hold on. So they can take this AI, which has spent like its entire existence studying cheekbones and eyelashes,
Right.
and then show it a sunflower. And it'll know how to make the petals like realistically bend in the wind.
Exactly. It's like it's learned this like deeper understanding of how shapes and forms are supposed to move no matter what they are. They think by learning faces, which are so nuanced, right? It was able to pick up on these more universal like motion principles that it can then apply anywhere.
That's so cool. And I saw in the paper they were also using it to like move objects around in photos with all sorts of crazy backgrounds. And it actually looked like those things were supposed to be there all along.
Yeah, that's another thing. It's really good at keeping the background looking right, which is huge.
Yeah.
But you're right, there are some buts.
Yeah.
Like it's amazing at those small, subtle movements.
Okay.
But big, complex stuff, not so much.
So it can handle like repositioning a smile or fine-tuning a tree branch. But if I want to take a horse running in a field and make it rear up on its hind legs...
Might not be the best tool for that, no. Remember, it's still working with a still image.
Right.
Like, it can use what it knows to guess,
Yeah.
but there's only so much you can do with one frame.
Sure, it's like the difference between moving furniture and like choreographing a whole dance routine.
Perfect analogy.
With the furniture, you can kind of get the idea from where things are, but the dance, you need to see it in motion.
Yeah, and to be fair, even the best motion capture stuff they use in movies, that has its limits too.
Oh, yeah.
We've all seen those CGI moments that look kind of janky.
Totally.
So instant drag might not be making Hollywood magic anytime soon, but for like your average person editing photos, this could be huge.
Absolutely. Like, imagine if anyone, even if they've never touched Photoshop, could edit a picture as easily as they picture it in their head.
Yeah.
No more like trying to select tiny little details for hours.
Nope, just pure creativity.
That's amazing.
It's the dream.
It is. So this all sounds super promising, but it's still early days, right? What are the next steps for them? Like, what has to happen to make this thing, reach its final form?
Okay, so one thing, right now, it works best if you fine-tune it for different types of pictures. So say you want to edit a bunch of animal photos, right?
Yeah.
They found it works best if you give us some extra training on animal videos first.
Ah, so like a crash course in animal anatomy and how they move.
Yeah, exactly. Just like they did with faces at the beginning.
Makes sense.
The more it knows about a specific thing, the better it's going to be at predicting how it should move.
Right. So to get the most out of this thing, we'd need like a bunch of different instant drags. One for faces, one for animals, one for landscapes, and so on.
Kind of, yeah, like specialized tools for specialized jobs.
Right. You wouldn't use a hammer to saw wood, so...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what they think the future of this is, training it on like massive data sets of all different kinds of stuff.
Okay.
So you have like instant drag, faces, instant drag, animals.
Oh, like instant drag.
Yeah.
Anime style.
Exactly.
The possibilities are endless.
Endless. And then the cool part is, like, the AI is doing all the hard work.
Right.
So anyone could use it.
So anyone who has an idea can create it. They don't need to know the technical minutia of how to do it in Photoshop, which I still don't even know.
It's like the difference between, needing to be a master painter to make something that looks cool versus having these magic brushes
Right.
that do what you want.
Anyone can use them.
Exactly.
That's really exciting to lower that barrier to entry.
Yeah, totally. It could change everything about how we use images, how we make them.
Totally.
Like a whole new visual language that anyone can speak.
It's like a whole wave of new digital artists could just appear out of nowhere. People who maybe never thought they were like visual people.
Totally. It's going to be wild.
That is very cool. And that's what I love about these deep dives. We really get to see what the future of this stuff could be, and where creativity and all this crazy tech meet. So I guess as we're wrapping up our instant drag deep dive here, what's the one thing you want people to remember about all this?
I think, honestly, just how clever it is, the whole approach.
Mm-hmm.
By, basically teaching this AI to see motion through the lens of how we see video, they figured out a way to make editing images so much faster, so much more precise, so much easier for regular people to use.
Yeah.
It really feels like that first step, towards our tools just getting out of the way and letting us create whatever we can dream up.
Like bridging the gap between your imagination and the computer screen.
Exactly.
Very cool. Well, that is going to do it for this deep dive into instant drag, folks. Until next time, keep your eyes peeled, keep making cool stuff, and who knows, maybe you'll be the one to take this tech even further. Ever drawn a character and wished it would just spring to life?
Yeah.
We're talking full-on 3D animation straight from your imagination.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Well, the research we're diving into today is making that fantasy a reality.
Whoa, really?
It's called drawing spin-up, 3D animation from single character drawings, and it's seriously cool.
Okay, so drawing spin-up. What's so special about it?
The really cool thing is that it takes just one drawing, just one,
Just one, okay.
and turns it into a moving, grooving 3D character.
No way. So you don't need all that complex animation software.
Nope. And no more hours of painstaking work.
That's incredible because getting even simple movements to look right in 3D can be a real pain.
Right. It's like those old cartoons where the characters just kind of glide across the screen.
Yeah, you can totally tell it's just a flat image.
But drawing spin-up, this is totally different.
Okay, I'm hooked. How does it work?
So they had this big hurdle to overcome.
What was it?
Usually you'd train an AI with a ton of examples, right? You need the 2D drawings and their matching 3D models.
Makes sense, you got to teach it somehow.
But getting those pairs for every art style out there, practically impossible.
Why is that? What makes it so hard?
Think about it. Art is subjective, right? Every artist has their own style.
Yeah, that's what makes it unique.
Exactly. Capturing that in a data set in a way that makes sense for training an AI, it's tough.
It's like, how do you even begin to capture all those little nuances? The line weight, the shading, all that stuff.
It's like trying to bottle up creativity.
So if you don't have these massive data sets, how do you teach an AI to animate in different styles?
That is the million-dollar question, and this is where drawing spin-up gets really clever.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Instead of starting from zero, they use these pre-trained image-to-3D models.
They're using models that already exist.
Exactly. One of them is called Wonder 3D. Ever heard of it?
Rings a bell. It does 3D modeling, right?
Yeah, and it's pretty impressive. So drawing spin-up builds on that technology.
Okay, so instead of reinventing the wheel, they're using existing tools in a new way.
Exactly. And it's like, imagine a chef. They already know how to cook. They have techniques.
Right. They don't need to learn everything from scratch every time.
They take those skills and they use them to create something new and exciting. That's what drawing spin-up is doing with 3D modeling.
That's a great analogy. Okay, so they've got this pre-trained model. What's next? How do they actually make it work?
It's a multi-stage process, but they actually start by removing the contour lines from the drawing.
Wait, what? The outlines?
I know, right? Sounds counterintuitive.
Because aren't those like the main thing in a drawing? They define the whole character.
They do, but they can mess things up when you're trying to make it 3D.
Really? How so?
And think of it like this. Those contour lines, the AI might mistake them for internal details.
Ah, I see. So it's like trying to 3D print something with extra bits sticking out. It just messes up the whole shape.
Exactly. Removing those contours, it lets the AI focus on the core shapes, the basic form.
Okay, that makes sense. So they prep the drawing, remove the contours. What happens next?
They feed this contourless image into that Wonder 3D model.
The one we talked about.
The 3D detective. It takes that flat image and figures out the missing dimensions.
And boom, you've got yourself a 3D model.
Well, not quite boom. It's a good start, but it needs some refining.
I figured. So what do they do to make it even better?
That's where things get really interesting.
Even more interesting. Okay, lay it on me.
There are two big innovations. The first is called skeleton-based thinning deformation.
Skeleton-based. Okay, that sounds complicated.
It's actually pretty straightforward. This algorithm basically makes those thin parts of the character look more realistic in 3D.
Thin parts? Like what?
Like hair, limbs, those areas where the drawing might just be a single line.
Ah, right. But in 3D, a single line can turn into this weird, thick shape.
Yeah. It's like giving your stick figure character sausage fingers. Not a good look.
Not a good look at all. So this algorithm helps with that.
It's like it's sculpting the model. It targets those specific areas and thins them out.
Without distorting the rest of the character.
Exactly. It's pretty amazing. They have some great visual examples in Figure 8 of the paper.
Oh, I have to check that out. Okay, so that's one cool thing. What's the second one?
Remember those contour lines we talked about? The ones they removed at the beginning?
Yeah.
They bring them back.
They do. But I thought those mess things up.
They can, but they're also what gives the drawing its style. You don't want to lose that.
That makes sense. So how do they add them back in without ruining everything?
It's called stylized contour restoration, and it's seriously impressive stuff.
Okay, tell me more. Stylized contour restoration.
They use a spiral kind of network, and it analyzes those original lines, those contours.
Or capture the style.
Capture the style.
Wow. So it's like bringing back those finishing touches that make the drawing unique.
And get this, it even considers how the character is moving as it adds them back in.
Hold on. It's adjusting the contours on the fly based on the animation. That's some next-level stuff.
Yeah.
How does it even do that?
It uses something called RIC convolutional layers.
RIC convolutional layers. All right, you're going to have to break that down for me. I'm not an AI expert.
It's, in simple terms, they're like a secret ingredient in the AI recipe. They help keep the style consistent no matter how the character moves.
So if the character is twisting and turning, the style stays true to the original drawing.
You got it. It's like giving the AI X-ray vision to see the drawing style from any angle.
That's pretty amazing. But this is all theoretical, right? Seeing is believing.
Oh, they've got visuals. And the results speak for themselves.
Let's see what they've got.
They compared drawing spin up to older methods. Figure 10 shows how much better it is at motion, like how smoothly it moves.
So we can actually see the difference between that old school sliding movement and actual 3D.
You'll see it. Drawing spin-ups animations, they actually capture the 3D movement.
Even for complicated movements.
Even for those.
Yeah.
And for style, you got to check out figures 11 and 12.
All right.
The difference is night and day. You can see how drawing spin-up keeps that special something from the original drawing.
It's like the difference between watching a puppet show and a Pixar movie.
The perfect analogy.
But it's not just us saying it's good, is it?
Yeah.
Did they test this on actual people?
Well, he did. They had people rate the animations.
Okay, what were they rating? What were they looking for?
How natural the movements looked, how well it captured the artistic style, the whole package.
All right, drum roll, please.
Yeah.
How did drawing spin up do?
It blew the competition out of the water. People loved it. They loved the movements. They loved the style.
So the people have spoken. This is big.
Mm-hmm.
But this feels bigger than just one research paper, you know? What does this mean for animation in general?
It could change everything, especially for folks who aren't professional animators.
Are you saying anyone could do this?
Imagine anyone who can draw could bring their characters to life.
Wow. Students could create animations for projects. Game developers could try out ideas without needing a whole studio.
The possibilities are mind-blowing.
This is seriously exciting stuff. But on a personal note, will we ever get to use it?
That's what I want to know. They're working on making it faster, easier to use. Right now, it takes a while, especially if you're trying to train it on a new art style.
So it's not quite ready for prime time.
Not yet, but they're even looking into text prompts.
Wait, what? Like you could tell it to make the character dance.
Exactly.
That would be game-changing. But let's be real, there got to be some limitations. No technology is perfect.
True, and they admit that. So where does drawing spin-up still need some work? What are the challenges?
Those complex drawings with tons of details and different poses, those are still tricky.
Yeah, the more complicated it gets, the harder it is for the AI to get it just right.
Especially those overlapping limbs, or when parts of the body are hidden.
It's like solving a jigsaw puzzle with missing pieces.
And those RIC convolutional layers, as amazing as they are.
They have their limits.
Yeah, if you want to do really wild, crazy movements, you might still see some inconsistencies.
So maybe tell your AI to cool it on the breakdancing for now.
Probably a good idea.
Seriously, though, it's good to be aware of the limitations.
It helps us understand just how much work goes into this kind of technology. And who knows, maybe someone listening will be inspired to come up with new solutions.
Exactly. That's what's so cool about this field. It's constantly pushing boundaries. But I think we might have pushed our listeners' brains to their limit for now.
Good point. We have covered a lot.
We've gone from stick figures to AI artist in, like 20 minutes?
Time flies when you're having fun with AI.
It really does. But before we get too carried away...
We should probably let our listeners take a break.
Exactly. But for those who are already hooked, where can they go to see drawing spin-up in action?
The researchers have a whole project page for it.
Perfect. And we'll link that in the show notes for everyone.
Great.
Fair warning, though. Once you see these animations, static 2D might never look the same.
You've been warned. Okay, I think it's time to hit pause on this deep dive for now.
I agree. We've covered a ton today.
From the struggles of traditional animation to the incredible things AI can do.
It's been a wild ride.
It has. And who knows what mind-blowing breakthroughs are next. The future of animation is looking bright.
That's the beauty of it all. Endless possibilities.
And for everyone listening, thanks for joining us on the deep dive.
We'll be back with more cutting-edge research soon. But until then, keep those creative sparks flying. I know I am. It's really got me thinking. But before we go too far down that road, the researchers, they focused on animating just one character at a time, right?
Right, just one.
But this technology couldn't handle something more complex, like a whole scene.
They actually talk about that.
Right.
Right now, it's single characters, front-facing ones, which makes sense since it's all from one drawing.
Yeah, okay.
But they're hinting at, multiple characters in the future, maybe even different types of drawings.
So instead of one superhero, it could be a whole team of them.
Exactly. Or imagine a comic book panel coming to life.
That would be insane.
They even mentioned quadruped animals. Can you believe that?
Our furry friends as the next animation stars.
Who knows what people will come up with? This could be the start of something totally new.
That's what I love about this kind of research. It feels like anything is possible.
It's pretty mind-blowing.
But as amazing as drawing spin-up is,
Yeah.
there are still some technical things they need to figure out, right?
Oh, for sure. Every new technology has its challenges.
So what are they? What are the next big hurdles for drawing spin-up?
Well, like we said before, those more complex drawings with lots of details, different poses, that's still tough for it.
Right, because the more there is going on.
Exactly. The harder it is for the AI to get everything right in 3D, especially when you have limbs overlapping or parts of the body hidden behind other parts.
It's like trying to draw, I don't know, a detailed portrait versus just a stick figure. The level of complexity is way higher.
Exactly. And remember those RAC convolutional layers we talked about? The ones that help keep the art style consistent?
They were amazing. Game changers.
They were. But even those have limits.
Yeah.
If the AI has to animate really extreme poses or movements it's never seen before,
It can trip up.
it can. You might get some weird results, style-wise. It's like even the AI has its artistic limits.
So even with all this tech, it can't quite match a human artist yet.
Not yet.
Yeah.
But that just shows how much room there is to grow to get even better.
It's like they've opened this door to a whole new world of animation.
A whole new world.
And now it's up to the researchers, the artists, everyone to explore it.
To see what's possible.
Exactly. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves,
Right, back to reality.
for our listeners who are just as excited about this as we are, where can they see Drawing Spin Up in action?
The research team has a project page for it.
Perfect. And we'll link to that in the show notes so everyone can check it out. It's really something else to see it in action. But on that note, I think it's time to wrap up this deep dive.
I agree. We've covered a lot today.
We went from the challenges of traditional animation to AI-powered animation. That was quite the journey.
It was. And who knows what amazing breakthroughs are next.
That's the beauty of it all. The future of animation is full of exciting possibilities. And for you listening, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into the world of cutting-edge research. Until then, keep exploring and keep those creative sparks flying. It really does feel like we're on the verge of something huge. I can't wait to see what happens next with AI and animation.
Me neither. It's an exciting time to be following this field.
It really is. And for you listening, thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive. We'll be back next time with another deep dive into the world of cutting-edge research. Until then, keep exploring and keep those creative sparks flying.
All right, so you're into AI image editing, huh? Specifically the kind of tools that just let you get creative without needing to become like a Photoshop master.
Yeah?
And you know what? Me too. Honestly, I've lost track of how many hours I've wasted wrestling with those super precise masking tools. And don't even get me started on AI interpretations of what I want. Sometimes it feels like the AI is making abstract art instead of actually following my instructions.
It's like it's trying to express itself instead of doing what you ask for.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why I'm so interested in this click-to-mask research, single-click editing that gives you realistic results. If they can pull that off, it'd be a game changer.
It really could be. To understand why it's such a big deal, we need to think about the tools we have now and their limitations. Like imagine you're trying to add a hat to a picture of your dog. With some AI tools, you'd have to draw a perfect outline around your dog's head pixel by pixel.
Oh, man. I can already feel the hand cramps coming on just thinking about that.
Right. And it's so easy to mess up. One misplaced pixel and your poor dog ends up with a hat that's completely wonky. Then there's the other end of the spectrum. You try typing in a prompt, like add a cute hat to the dog. And AI being AI, sometimes it gives you something that, well, let's just say you wouldn't want to see it happen in real life.
Oh, I've been there.
Yeah.
Once ended up with my dog wearing what looked like a fish tank. It was not a good look.
Exactly. And the problem is how AI handles local image editing. You know those edits that target just one specific part of the image? Getting that level of precision without making users jump through hoops is incredibly difficult. And that's what Click2Mask is trying to solve.
And it does it by simplifying the whole thing down to a single click. How does that even work? Is there like a tiny little magician inside my computer I don't know about?
Not quite. It's a really clever combination of what they call dynamic mask generation and a technique called blended latent diffusion, or BLD for short.
Okay, those sound super technical, but break it down for me.
Sure. So let's say you've got this beautiful picture of a sunset and you decide you want to add a hot air balloon. With Click to Mask, you just click where you want the balloon to be, and it starts creating a mask around that point. But here's where it gets really interesting. It's not just a boring old circle or square. This mask actually changes and adapts as the AI works.
Wait, so the mask is like growing and changing shape in real time? It's like it's learning what a hot air balloon looks like and where it should fit into the picture.
You got it. And if you're curious to actually see how it works, Figure 2 in the paper shows exactly how this mask evolves. It starts as a simple shape, and then it kind of morphs and contorts to perfectly match the hot air balloon as it's being added to the picture.
Wow, that's seriously cool. It's like you can almost see the AI thinking, okay, hot air balloon.
Yeah.
Got it. Hot air balloon goes here.
Exactly. And once it's figured out the shape and the placement, that's where the blended latent diffusion comes in.
Right. BLD, that's the other part of this whole magic trick.
Exactly. It makes sure that all the little details, the lighting, the shadows, the textures, all blend together perfectly. It's like the hot air balloon was always meant to be in that sunset photo.
No more of that kind of cut and paste look, where you can tell something was added in after the fact.
Nope. And that's one of the things that makes Click to Mask so impressive. And it's not just about adding things either. You can use it to replace things, change how things look, anything you do with like traditional image editing software. But with Click to Mask, you get that single click simplicity.
And I'm guessing it's way faster than the old way of doing things. Because having to train AI on every single image, that takes forever.
You're definitely not wrong about that. And that's another area where Click to Mask really shines. It uses a pre-trained model. So you don't need a supercomputer just to do something like swap out a background or add a couple of birds to the sky.
Okay, so it's efficient and easy to use. But what about the results? I mean, does Click to Mask actually give you better edits than other AI image editing tools out there?
That's where things get really interesting. The researchers actually put Click to Mask up against some of the biggest names in the field. Stuff like Magic Brush and Emu Edit.
Oh, wow. So these are like the heavy hitters in AI image editing. It's like the AI Olympics of image editing.
Exactly. And Click to Mask didn't just hold its own, it actually came out on top. And it did that both in how well it followed instructions and in how realistic the final images looked. They actually used a mix of different methods to figure that out. They did user studies where real people looked at the edited pictures and rated them. And they also used these things called automatic metrics.
Oh, well, go back up a second. Automatic metrics.
Yeah.
Is that like some kind of AI judging panel for AI art?
I know, right? I wish. But no, it's not quite as exciting as an AI art show. Basically, automatic metrics are algorithms that measure the technical aspects of an image edit.
So they're looking at things that would be really hard for humans to judge on a large scale, like how well the different parts of the picture blend together, or whether the edit actually matches what the text prompt asked for.
Exactly. And both the automatic metrics and the feedback from the user studies showed that Click to Mask was creating higher quality edits on a consistent basis. If you're the kind of person who likes to dig into the data, Table 1 in the paper breaks all of that down.
Oh, you know me. I love a good data table. But even more than that, I love those moments where you see what AI is capable of and it just blows you away. And some of these examples they included in the paper, like adding that gorilla that's eyeing some bananas. I mean, it's just incredible. For our listeners who want to check those out, where can they find those examples again?
They're in the research paper itself, figures 1, 3, and 6 to be exact.
Yeah.
And they've got a really great mix of different types of edits, from those really subtle tweaks to some really dramatic transformations.
They're definitely worth a look. But, you know, anytime you're dealing with a new technology, there are always going to be some growing pains. Were there any areas where Click to Mask didn't quite hit the mark? Did the researchers mention any limitations? That's true. No technology is ever perfect right out of the gate.
Yeah, you're right. Click to Mask definitely has its limitations. For example, if you're trying to do something super detailed like changing the color of a tiny button on a shirt, it can still be a little tricky. It seems to work best when you're dealing with bigger, broader edits.
So maybe not quite ready for those pixel-perfect edits.
Right, and it can sometimes get a little confused if there are similar objects in the picture. Like, say you're trying to add a coffee cup to a table that's already covered in mugs and glasses. The AI might have a hard time figuring out exactly where that new coffee cup should go.
It's like the AI is thinking, hold on, which one of these cylindrical things am I supposed to be adding to?
Yeah, something like that. It all comes down to how well the AI can tell the difference between things that look really similar. But even with those little hiccups, it's clear that Click-to-Mask is a huge step forward for AI image editing.
I mean, it really does feel like this could change the game when it comes to how we interact with images. No more spending hours trying to figure out how to use all those complicated tools. Just click and you're done.
It's like the difference between eating a professional photographer for a good headshot and being able to just take an amazing selfie.
Okay, that is a comparison I can get behind. It's like this technology could make image editing something anyone can do.
Exactly. Think about all the things you could do. Enhance your vacation photos, make really cool graphics for social media, even design a website. Click-to-Mask could give anyone the ability to take their visual ideas and make them a reality.
You don't need to be a Photoshop expert anymore to get those professional-looking results. That really is a game changer. And it's not just about personal use either. Imagine how this could impact businesses, educators, artists, every field you can think of.
Oh, absolutely. It could help people work more efficiently. It could inspire new ideas. It could even help level the playing field for people who don't have the money for expensive design software. The possibilities are really exciting.
It really does feel like Click-to-Mask is leading us into this whole new world of visual content creation. And I don't know about you, but I'm really excited to see where it goes from here. But for now, we'll leave you with this one thought-provoking question. What if you could edit any image with just a single click? What would you create? What kind of amazing edits would you make? It's something to think about, isn't it?
It definitely is. And with how fast AI is developing, we might not have to wait too long before that single-click future becomes a reality.
Can't wait. Well, this has been an amazing deep dive into the world of AI image editing. Until next time, keep those creative sparks flying.
Okay, so audio. It's kind of everywhere, right? But even with the insane tech we've got now, some audio is just,
Right.
like an old record all scratchy, or a live stream that keeps buffering and killing the vibe. What if we could just hit restore and get that perfect sound back?
You're talking about the holy grail of audio, man.
Yeah.
Pristine audio, especially from a rough starting point. It's a challenge, that's for sure.
And it sounds like there's a new solution on the scene.
Yeah.
Apollo. That's our focus for this deep dive, this new model for crazy good audio restoration. We're going deep into the research, how it works, why this could be huge, not just for audiophiles, but for everyone.
Totally. This goes way beyond just listening, too. We're talking old recordings, live streams, even those AI voices that are popping up everywhere.
It's wild, taking a faded photo and making it perfect again. But before we go too far, when we say audio restoration, what do we even mean, really?
Basically, taking audio that's damaged, compressed. Think a low bitrate MP3 or a cassette tape that's seen better days. And we're talking bringing it as close as possible to the original recording, getting rid of all the pops, the hisses, all that gunk between you and the music.
No more cringing when the record player hits that one scratch.
Ideally, yeah. Though harder than it sounds. You see, audio degradation, especially in those mid to high frequencies, that's where the detail is, the clarity. That's the real challenge.
Like trying to see detail in a blurry picture, right? You know there's more there, but it's lost.
Precisely. Now, people have tried to solve this, of course. Bandwidth extension, that was a big one, trying to stretch the existing frequencies to fill the gaps. But you can only stretch so much before it sounds, well, synthetic, fake.
Like stretching a tiny blanket over a giant bed. Covers more space, but not comfy.
Good analogy.
So that's where Apollo comes in. Yeah, new approach entirely.
Exactly. This is targeted problem solving, taking cues from other cutting-edge fields, music separation, those high sample rate codecs.
Apollo's taking notes from the best, then swooping in to save the day. But for those of us who aren't walking audio encyclopedias, how does it work?
At its heart, it's about breaking down a huge problem into smaller ones. Imagine restoring a massive mural. You wouldn't do the whole thing at once, right?
Right. Sections. Makes sense.
Exactly. So Apollo uses 3 core modules: band split, band sequence modeling, and band reconstruction. Band split is first, where Apollo's like a chef, carefully separating the audio into different frequency bands or sub-bands.
Organizing the audio, making sure each part gets the right treatment.
Exactly. Then comes the magic band sequence modeling. This is where the AI flexes. Instead of just filling in blanks, it learns how the different frequencies relate to each other.
It's not just copying, it's understanding the structure of the sound itself.
You got it, like a detective, figuring out the rules of the music. A huge step forward.
Okay, so we've dissected the audio, analyzed it. Now what? How does Apollo put it all back together?
It's like you've got this massive puzzle, all sorted, labeled, Now you got to actually put it together.
No more audio Frankenstein then, right? All the pieces fitting right.
Exactly. Smooth, natural sound. As close as we can get to that original recording.
Okay, so that's Apollo's process, those 3 steps. But what makes it special? Why is this a bigger deal than, say, the last model we talked about?
2 big things: quality and efficiency. See, older models, they struggled with the nuances, especially when the audio got complex. Lots of instruments, vocals.
You might hear the words, but miss the feeling. Like a singer's breath or the little vibrato.
Exactly. Apollo, it brings those layers back. Makes the audio, well, alive, 3-dimensional, like going from a blurry photo to high resolution, but with sound.
Okay, I'm getting a picture in my head, and it's pretty awesome. But all this analysis reconstruction, doesn't that take a ton of power? What about real-time stuff, streaming and all that?
That's the efficiency part. It's powerful, but designed to be lightweight, fast, so it can handle even high-fidelity audio without choking.
No more choppy audio during a live stream, even if my internet's being wonky.
You got it. That's the potential here. Live events, gaming, even calls. Imagine, crystal clear audio, wherever you are, whatever device you're on.
Sold on the idea for sure, but gotta put it to the test, right? What did the research actually show? How did Apollo perform in the real world?
Great question. They used 2 huge music data sets, MUSDB, 18HQ, and MoisesDB. Think of them as libraries of musical styles, all sorts of complexities, designed to really push a model.
Like an obstacle course for algorithms.
Exactly. They hit these pristine recordings with different types of degradation, simulated what happens to old recordings, low bitrate files. Then they set Apollo loose.
Okay, so roughed it up, threw some nasty audio at it. What happened?
Results were really promising. They measured it a few ways. Objective stuff like signal-to-distortion ratio, which basically tells you how much noise was removed, but also more subjective tests, focusing on how it actually sounded to people.
So computers A and D, real ears judging it, tough crowd. Did it pass?
More than passed. It beat out the previous top model, something called SRG-AN. And it wasn't close, across different genres, different levels of degradation.
So from squished pop songs to wrecked jazz records, Apollo handled it.
Yep. And not just a small improvement either. This was significant, a real jump forward for audio restoration.
Starting to think they should have called it Phoenix, bringing audio back from the dead. But before we get too carried away, let's step back a sec. Recap what we know about Apollo.
Good idea. Covered a lot. Problem of audio degradation, why the old ways don't cut it, and how Apollo tackles it with that 3-step approach.
Right, and the research. This isn't just theory, it's actually proven to work.
Exactly. What it is, how it works. That's step 1. Now for the exciting part, why this matters, what it could mean for audio going forward.
It's like we've had this good enough audio for so long, and Apollo's like, hold my drink, check this out.
Love that. And yet it gets even more interesting when you think bigger picture. This isn't just fixing old stuff. It's how we experience audio, period. Everywhere.
Okay, now you're speaking my language. Paint me a picture. What's this future look like?
Imagine. Live concert at home.
Right.
But not just a stream on your laptop. I'm talking you're there.
Yeah.
Front row.
Yeah.
Every note, every breath the singer takes, like you're in the crowd.
No more battling the bad audio mix or someone's janky Wi-Fi ruining the song.
Gone. Apollo bridges that gap. Remote experiences, suddenly they're real. And beyond music even. Think gaming online. Hearing your opponent's footsteps in a shooter? Crystal clear. Advantage you.
Now that is a game changer. No more cheap shots because the audio was muddy.
Right, and VR. As that gets more real, more immersive, audio's got to keep up. Apollo could build those soundscapes so detailed, you're not just playing in a world, you're there.
Sonic portal to another dimension. Okay, I'm with you, but that's the future. What about the past? You mentioned bringing old recordings back to life.
Huge, yeah. Historical stuff, speeches, music, even just sounds from nature. What if we could hear them like they were meant to be heard?
Rediscovering lost music. Hearing history unfold, clear as day. Even just the sounds of nature decades ago. Man.
It's like this time capsule, right? Preserving what we thought was gone. But it's not just nostalgia, it's understanding, connecting with the past through sound. Powerful stuff.
No doubt. So we've gone from reviving old recordings to like reinventing live events. Apollo's got some serious potential to change how we experience, well, everything audio.
And honestly, we're just scratching the surface. Like any big tech leap, the real excitement is what we haven't thought of yet. How Apollo combines with other new stuff, whole new experiences.
We're standing at the edge of this uncharted audio territory, and Apollo's our map. So for everyone listening, if there's one takeaway, it's this. The future of audio. Looking bright and sounding crystal clear.
Okay, so what if you could go back and like change the lighting of your photos?
Uh-huh.
But I'm not talking about some Instagram filter,
Right.
you know?
Right.
I mean, really change it. Like control where the light's coming from, everything. Like you had a whole team of like Hollywood lighting experts just like on call.
Yeah. Well, time travel might be a bit of a stretch,
Okay.
but that Hollywood lighting idea, you're onto something there.
Okay, so we are talking like serious sorcery then.
Laughing that guy?
Tell me more.
Let's call it some cutting-edge AI instead of sorcery. How about that?
I like it.
So we're diving into this research paper
Okay.
where these brilliant minds figured out how to use AI to relight entire scenes.
Hold on, relight entire scenes.
Yeah.
I thought AI was mostly used for like generating pictures.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like from those text prompts everyone's talking about. How do you teach a computer to change lighting after the photo's already been taken or the scene's been like rendered or whatever?
Right.
That's like unbaking a cake, isn't it?
Yeah, you're totally right. It is kind of like unbaking a cake because in a photo, the way the light hits the objects, all the shadows, all the reflections, it's all baked in.
It's all there.
Right. And so for a really long time, changing that after the fact was either impossible or it was incredibly complex and expensive.
Yeah.
You needed all this special equipment and multiple cameras and all this crazy stuff.
Right.
This new research is a game changer because it's using AI and this concept called radiance fields to make relighting accessible and even easy.
Radiance fields. Okay, I'm going to need you to break that down for me. It sounds kind of intimidating.
Okay, so think of a radiance field like a super detailed 3D map of a scene.
Okay.
But instead of just showing you the shape of things, it holds all the information about the light and the color.
Ah.
So you can view that scene from any angle and see how the light would naturally interact with everything.
So it's like having a digital twin of a real place, but with like the added superpower of being able to like change up the lighting however you want.
Exactly.
Whoa.
And what's even more remarkable is that they're using AI to generate these radiance fields from a surprisingly simple starting point.
Okay, now you've really got me on the edge of my seat here. How does that work? What's the secret sauce?
Well, their secret weapon is a type of AI model called a diffusion model.
Okay.
And these models are trained on absolutely massive data sets of images. We're talking billions of images.
Billions with a B.
Billions with a B. And through that training process, they learn to create incredibly realistic images from scratch.
Right, like those AI art generators everyone's going crazy for.
Exactly.
Okay, but how does that translate to relighting an existing scene?
So that's where it gets really clever. They realize that these AI models, by learning from all those images, have essentially become experts on how light behaves in the real world.
So it's like they've absorbed the visual knowledge of like 1,000 photographers just by analyzing all that data.
Exactly.
Wow.
And what's even more impressive is that they figured out how to fine-tune a pre-trained diffusion model.
Okay.
This one's called stable diffusion.
Okay.
And they made it incredibly good at the very specific task of relighting, even for really complex scenes.
All right, so we've got our AI. It's like a lighting whiz kit or whatever.
Yeah.
What's the next step? Do you need to feed it some super high-tech multi-light capture to make it work?
That's the best part. You don't.
Oh, really?
So imagine you have a few photos of a room taken from different angles. Kind of like what you need to create one of those 3D models you see online.
Gotcha.
Right.
So we're talking like a typical multi-view capture.
Exactly.
But only taken under one lighting condition, right?
Precisely. One lighting condition is all it takes.
Ah.
And that's what makes this approach so practical and accessible.
Okay. This is blowing my mind.
Ooh, okay.
So I've got my photos and I've got this AI that's ready to work its magic. What happens next? How does it actually relight the scene?
It's almost like the AI starts to hallucinate, but in a good way. It takes each photo and using its massive knowledge of how light interacts with objects, it creates 18 different variations of that same viewpoint,
Whoa.
each lit from a different direction.
Hold on, hallucinate. That sounds a little unnerving.
Yeah.
Should we be worried about our AI having an existential crisis or something?
No. Not to worry. It's just a figure of speech.
Okay, good.
What we mean is that the AI uses its training data to predict and create those additional lighting variations, but in a way that makes sense visually.
Okay.
Right. Think of it this way. It's seen countless examples of light hitting surfaces and casting shadows and creating reflections.
Yeah.
So when you give it a new scene, it can basically use its imagination to fill in the blanks and show you what that scene would look like under those 18 different light sources.
That is seriously cool. So now we have all these images each lit differently. How do we go from that to a fully relightable 3D scene?
That's where the radiance fields I mentioned earlier come in, along with another very clever technique they developed.
All right, I am ready for part 2 of this magical AI journey.
Hit me with it. So last we left off, our AI had analyzed those photos and created all those images, each one showing the scene lit from a different direction.
Right.
But how do we go from those separate images to a seamless 3D scene that you can actually interact with and relight on the fly?
Yeah, so that's where things get really, really impressive.
Okay.
They use this technique, you can kind of think of like 3D stitching.
Okay.
That takes all those AI-generated images from all those different angles and weaves them together to a complete 3D model. So like those really detailed 3D models you can spin around online and stuff.
Exactly like that.
Okay, so we're building a 3D world out of these AI images. But you mentioned earlier something called radiance fields. And I have a feeling they're about to make a comeback here.
Yeah, you're right on. Those radiance fields are key to making this whole thing work.
Okay.
So remember they're those 3D maps of the light and color for a scene.
Yeah.
This 3D stitching process we've been talking about. It uses those AI images to actually build the radiance field, which essentially lets you view and light the scene from any angle you can imagine.
That's wild. It's like taking those flat images and puffing them up into a full 3D scene. It's all that realistic lighting information.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow. But I imagine getting all those AI-generated viewpoints to line up perfectly.
Yeah.
And create this believable 3D scene. It can't be easy. Were there any challenges they had to overcome there?
Oh, absolutely. Tons. It's you're trying to build this perfect puzzle, but the pieces are constantly changing shape.
Oh, God.
One of the biggest hurdles was making sure the lighting looks consistent across all the different viewpoints. You don't want weird jumps or flickers in the lighting as you're moving around the scene.
Yeah, that would totally ruin the illusion for sure.
Exactly.
So how did they tackle that?
So they came up with some very ingenious algorithms that essentially smooth out any of those inconsistencies.
Okay.
And that ensures that the lighting transitions really smoothly as you explore that 3D scene.
Very cool.
They also had to make sure that the AI didn't accidentally introduce any weird artifacts or distortions while it was busy hallucinating all those different lighting variations.
Right. It's they had to teach the AI to be a meticulous artist paying attention to every little detail to make sure the final result looks natural.
Precisely. And the researchers were very thorough in testing their approach. They actually ran this whole AI-powered relighting process on 2 different types of scenes to see how well it performed.
Okay. I'm curious, what kind of scenes did they use as their, proving grounds?
Right.
And more importantly, did it actually work?
Yeah.
So did it actually work? Give me the good stuff.
They actually tested it in 2 ways, with computer-generated scenes and then with real-world photos, which is really important. So the computer-generated scenes are the perfect lab setup. Everything is perfectly lit and controlled, so they can really see how accurately the AI is recreating the lighting.
So it's like testing a new race car in a simulator before you actually hit the real racetrack.
Exactly. And in those computer-generated scenes, the results were incredible. The AI-powered relighting was almost indistinguishable from the original lighting.
Wow.
But of course, the real test is how does it do out in the real world, right?
Right, with all of its imperfections.
Exactly.
Okay, so how did it handle the unpredictability of real-world photos?
Yeah.
With all the weird shadows and the complicated textures and real-life lighting, which can be messy.
Yeah, you got it. So they took a bunch of their own photos, just regular scenes and objects around them.
Okay.
And they ran those through the AI relighting process. And even though those real-world photos have all these inconsistencies and challenges that you just don't have in those perfect computer-generated scenes,
right,
the results were still really impressive.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But you know me, I always have to play devil's advocate here. Were there any limitations they encountered?
Sure.
Were there any moments where the AI just totally missed the mark?
Well, no technology is perfect, right?
Yeah.
They were very upfront about the fact that there are still some limitations. For example, sometimes the AI-generated shadows wouldn't quite line up with where they should be in the real world.
Okay.
Or the highlights on an object might look a little bit off.
So not catastrophic failures, but subtle things that most people wouldn't notice unless they were really looking for them.
Exactly. And that to me is actually really impressive. It's not creating these scenes where the lighting is just completely bonkers.
Right.
It's making these like really subtle, nuanced mistakes that our brains often just kind of gloss over.
It makes sense. It's like those optical illusions,
Like.
where you don't even realize something's off until somebody points it out to you.
Right, exactly. And what I really appreciated is that they didn't just say, oh yeah, sometimes it doesn't work perfectly. They actually showed examples of those limitations and talked about why the AI might have struggled in those specific instances.
Oh, cool.
So it shows a real commitment to transparency and to continuous improvement.
I like it. Okay, so we've established this AI can do some seriously cool things.
Yeah.
But let's bring it back down to earth for a second. Why should this matter to someone who's not like a computer graphics wizard? What's the so what for the average person listening to this right now?
Yeah, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, the potential applications are massive. Imagine being able to go back and fix the lighting in your old family photos.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the ones where someone's face is like awkwardly shadowed or the flash washed everyone out?
Right.
Or how about virtually staging a room with different lighting designs before you even buy a single lamp?
Oh, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
No more agonizing over paint swatches and light fixtures at the store.
Right.
You could relight your entire house with like a click of a button.
Yeah.
That's wild. This could totally change everything from interior design to photography to film.
Absolutely. And that's just scratching the surface. Think about video games. Imagine playing a game where the environments are so immersive and they respond to those lighting changes in real time.
Oh, wow.
Right. This tech could really start to blur the lines between like the virtual world and the real world.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Okay, well, my mind is officially blown. This has been an awesome deep dive.
It's been fun.
But before we wrap up, I always like to leave our listeners with something to ponder. A little food for thought.
I like it.
So what's the big, thought-provoking question that this research opens up?
Okay, so we've talked about how AI can learn to relight these scenes realistically.
Right?
But could it eventually learn to understand the emotion of lighting just like we do?
Oh, wow.
Think about how different lighting can evoke such different feelings, right?
Yeah, like warm, cozy lighting makes you feel relaxed. But then you have like harsh, cool lighting that might make you feel kind of uneasy.
Yeah, or like in a movie, how a good director uses lighting to like set the mood or influence how we perceive a character.
Exactly.
So imagine an AI that could look at a scene and be like, this lighting feels a little bit cold and impersonal.
Yeah.
Let's warm it up and create a more inviting atmosphere.
Whoa.
Or an AI that could adjust the lighting in your house throughout the day to match your mood or your energy levels.
Okay, that's both fascinating and a little bit creepy. I love it.
Love this.
And on that note, we have reached the end of our deep dive.
Yeah.
I hope your brains are as thoroughly stimulated as mine.
Be sure to check out the show notes for links to the research paper we discussed and some incredible examples of this AI in action. Until next time, keep those minds curious and those imaginations ignited.